Have you ever felt stuck? Like you're caught repeating the same patterns, and you know they're hurting you, but you just can't seem to break free. Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack the real architecture of that struggle. And trust me, it's probably not what you think.
So let's just start with the big question, right? Why? Why do we walk back into the very rooms that we know have hurt us before? Could be a relationship, a bad habit, a negative way of thinking. It's a super frustrating experience, and I think we can all relate to it on some level.
To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to talk about what's called the loop of familiar pain. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's that hamster wheel feeling, right? Where you consciously want to change. You want to get off the wheel, but you keep finding yourself taking the same steps and ending up right back where you started, over and over and over again.
And this loop can show up in so many different parts of our lives. For you, it might be that one habit you just can't seem to kick. Or maybe you've looked around and realized that all of your relationships seem to follow the exact same kind of painful script. Or maybe it's just those quiet little self-defeating things you do that you can't seem to get a handle on. The situation might look different, but that feeling of being stuck, it's always the same.
Okay, so this is really important, and we need to get it out of the way right now. We have to talk about the self-blame that almost always comes along for the ride. That voice in your head that says this is all some personal flaw or a sign of weakness. But what if that's a complete misdiagnosis of what's actually going on?
Because it really does, doesn't it? When we can't break out of a cycle, it is so easy to turn that inward and think, what is wrong with me? It feels like this huge fundamental failure of willpower or character.
But here's the thing. The truth is, this has very, very little to do with your character. This is about biology. Yeah? What if I told you that repeating these painful patterns is actually your brain trying to protect you? That it's all part of a deeply wired survival instinct?
So, to wrap our heads around this whole survival instinct thing, we have to look at what our brain actually cares about. And here's a spoiler, it's not your happiness, it's predictability. So let's dive into the brain's comfort zone.
All right, this right here, this is the core concept of this whole explainer. Your brain's number one job, its prime directive, is not to make you happy. Its job is to keep you alive. And to do that, it prioritizes survival above all else. And in the brain's world, survival means one thing: choosing what is familiar and predictable.
So this is basically how your brain weighs its options. On one side, you've got familiar pain. Yeah, it hurts, but your brain knows the outcome, it's predictable, it's known. So believe it or not, your brain labels it as safe. Now on the other side, you've got unknown growth. This could be amazing, but it's uncertain, it's new, and for a brain that's obsessed with survival, uncertain is a huge red flag that basically translates to dangerous.
So that preference for the known, even when the known is painful, is exactly why trying to be safe can feel like you're sabotaging yourself. It explains how these harmful loops get so deeply carved into our brains that they feel completely automatic, like you're not even the one driving anymore.
And here's how that actually happens inside your head. Think of it like your brain is building a highway. So first, a trigger happens. Could be a feeling, a person, a situation. Instantly, your brain searches its map for a familiar road, a known response. Then it just executes it automatically without you even having to think. And every single time this happens, that neural pathway, that highway, gets a little bit wider, a little stronger, and a whole lot easier to travel down the next time.
And this really gets to the most important shift in how we see this. You are not consciously choosing these patterns. What's happening is your brain is just running a program, an automatic unconscious program that it has filed away under the label safe.
So, if it isn't a personal failure, and it isn't really a conscious choice, then how are we supposed to think about these patterns that are so deep-seated? Well, this is where we get to look at our own internal wiring from a totally new perspective. This is the big takeaway. Let's completely reframe this whole thing. Being stuck is not a moral failure. It's not a personal failure. It is simply your brain doing its job, trying to protect you. But it's using a strategy that's, well, it's outdated. It might have served you at one point, but it doesn't anymore. Think of it like an outdated piece of software.
And just understanding that is everything. Because once you can see the mechanism, once you realize it's just an automatic program running in the background, you can start to observe it without all that judgment. And that simple, mindful observation, that is the absolute first step toward rewriting the code.
So we're going to leave you with this question to think on. With this new framework in mind, this idea of survival, predictability, and automatic loops, what's one pattern in your own life that maybe, just maybe, makes a little more sense to you now? Because understanding the why, well, that's always the beginning of changing the how.